and start sharing my screen. And then I'm going to try to grab the chat so I can also try to pay attention to that while we're connected today. Okay, so thank you for your time in watching our webinar today on for November 2023. Today we will go through the agenda, which follows our usual format of any updates about and for the Rapido community, and then discussing the December release and addressing frequently asked questions from this month. Okay, starting out with items about and for the community. I want to acknowledge that as of this morning, we see that we have 112 live institutions. Welcome to the Rapido community, libraries from 3 different countries. So this month we saw Cardiff University go live, and they're now a partner for libraries in the UK pod. We saw Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University go live with Rapido. Congratulations there. And they're a new partner for libraries in the US pod. And we see that University of Auckland is now live with Rapido as well. And they're a new partner for libraries in the ANZ pod. You can use the form. Shared it previously, and I'll share it again today at the end. Remind me if I forget on that. But you can use the form to join the pods, like the international pod or like the ANZ pod, etc., as long as the pod is relevant to you. And I wanted to acknowledge as well, we've had libraries from 3 different countries go live this month, and soon enough we'll see libraries from new countries as well joining Rapido in South Africa and Spain. Another item from our community was attending the Charleston conference. Mike Richens and myself were able to attend, and it was so great to see so many of you there. So thank you for your time at the conference. It was a really good event, and it's always incredible to have those opportunities to connect in person and hear about your experiences. A few items that I thought you all might want to uh, be be aware of is the Aluna 2024 conference is now accepting proposals. The last deadline I saw for their call of proposals was November 30th, so that is coming up here. Additionally, the NERS voting is open for a second round with the December 8th deadline. And you can see the time there that you can vote until, and that voting is open for libraries who are using RapidILL and Rapido with an active Aluna or Igloo membership. So you'll have to log into NERS to cast your vote for the items to get added to the roadmap for 2024. Another piece about our community is that you'll now be able to find videos from the UK meetup event. So thank you to all of the libraries who collaborated with us on those videos. It's great to see the stories from our colleagues in the UK using Rapido. Oh, and I'm sorry, I bounced backwards instead of forwards here. All right. Thinking about those UK videos from the meetup event, we have a library or a collection on our Rapido web pages about customer stories. And if you have an interest in working with us to share your story via that video format that the UK from the UK, like the UK meetup event, or in a written format, or just sharing a quote in a couple of sentences, let's connect, because it's really important to share your stories and your experience with Rapido. Thank you to all the libraries. I can see a bunch of story thumbnails here from folks we've worked with on this type of project before. Okay, another item that I think is important for our community is for you all to know that the monthly webinars will continue in 2024, and they have all been scheduled. There are 2 different kind of time slot options, option 1 and option 2. One of the options will be better for your time zone, and you can find the registration on our 2024 webinars page. I can also share these links in the chat at the end so that you can get registered to continue to watch webinars live or even just the linked recordings to continue to stay up to date with everything in 2024. Further content on the web pages are now the 2024 roadmap, and you'll see that organized under the different themes. You'll find that via the Rapido website under Rapido documentation, product materials, roadmap, and themes. It's another link I can share with you as we part ways today. There's a lot of great pieces on the roadmap. I would love for you to look at it and explore that and know that there will be more to come as the year unfolds and as the results from that NERS voting becomes clear. Okay, so those were the pieces for our community section of our update today, and I want to next cover the release highlights for the December release. Within the theme of Connect, we've got a few items in the December release. So before we dive into our first item in the December release, it builds off of the item in the November release. So within the November release, or going forward from the November release, when you search the global index, or when you perform the enrich from global index action, you will see partner results of libraries who have enabled data sharing. So it is beneficial if other libraries have data sharing enabled. So it's something to consider at your library, because then other Rapido libraries can find your library as a holding partner for an item that they're looking for. So from the November release, you can see those partners there. Building on that, with the December release, you'll be able to see the potential pods there. So instead of scrolling through the list to see if one of your partners that you're established with holds the result that you've come across, you can see if it's held by partners in any of the pods in which you participate in. So both of those pieces of information will be available to you when you search from the global index scope, or when you perform the global index, enrich from global index action for libraries that have enabled data sharing. Okay, another development for the December release is new lender price fields. So we know that a lot of the pods that exist now are reciprocal, but going forward, we'll have some functionalities relating to fees and the functionality around that for libraries who need to work with fees in the resource sharing ecosystem. So there's some new price fields that we'll cover today. You'll find them under configuration, fulfillment, resource sharing, shipping cost, lender rule. There you can add a rule, and you'll see the new fields: base fee, page overage fee, copyright fee, and service level fee. You can add various parameters to use in defining these new fees. Partners, one of those, base fee being another. So let's look at an example of creating a rule here. So you select to add parameter, base fee page limit, with the operator value being greater than. You can select whatever value is relevant there. So in this example that we come to, this library has a rule for a base fee page limit. If the pages are greater than 10, then they charge per page. They're going to be charging 50 cents per page, with a base fee starting at just $1 there. They also have a shipping cost and a service level fee defined. Thinking about the page calculations and the page overage fee calculation. It's also visible within the request, and I think that's something good to know. Note it's only applied and visible in the request if an item is updated to shipped. Otherwise, the fees are not applied to a request. It also is not applied if the page numbers are unknown. The pages are known from either the pages field serving as a count of pages. So here we have 20 pages, but it wouldn't acknowledge a page range of 1 through 20, for example. It also can be determined by the values given in the start page and end page fields. There you could have start page 1, end page 20, etc. And then the fees that come into play are visible at the bottom after the request is updated to shipped. This information is also visible in the borrowing request for the borrowing library involved in this resource sharing transaction. And there is a note that makes the fees visible. It's a request note and it's visible to Rapido and ISO partners. And it will be consistently formatted with the fees in that order. Beyond moving beyond the new fee fields, there's another development in the December release for most libraries. Really, it's actually most relevant to libraries in the US who are connecting with a pod called the Rapid Returnables Pod, which is a group of libraries that they're connecting with who are not libraries using Rapido. And this development makes it so that the partner addresses will be visible on the request itself, just like any other partners that they have in their Rapido environment. It also means that the addresses from these partners will now be accessible within the letters. These are the various XML fields that will need to be added to the letters where these fields are not available in out-of-the-box letters. So there are a few letters that libraries will need to edit and add new fields to in order to be able to pull on this development if they are connecting to the Rapid Returnables pod. And here's just an example of that working successfully to pull in the address of that partner library. Okay, there are a few developments here on analytics to acknowledge. Again, it's important for this one to look back to the November release. In the November release, a new field was added to the partners. So if you went to fulfillment, resource sharing partners edit, you could see the alternate symbol field. This field can be used by libraries to add an alternate symbol for their partners. So perhaps you have a partner in your billing system or other systems that are known by a different symbol than their partner code. This is a field that you can utilize to make those connections and a place for you to put that information. This field is also available in the letters that came through in the November release. It's something important for libraries to know that they can use that field in their letters. And with the December release, this value will now be available in analytics too, should you want to include it in your analytics report. You'll find it in both the borrowing requests and lending requests partner fields. So here you can see that pathway in analytics, borrowing requests, partner alternate symbol, lending requests, partner alternate symbol, and you can move it into your analytics report if you want this value in an analytics report that you're using. Okay, let's discuss the frequently asked questions. There were quite a few that I wanted to acknowledge this month as they come from conversations with all of you. So I've had libraries ask, how do I lend more of my collection? Um, it's worth checking out what you have included in your participating items to make sure that the participating items that you have defined and attached to the pods that you're participating in represent all of the content in your collection that you really would want to be lending to other partners. Perhaps when you went live with Rapido, you limited that to a particular collection, and as you continue to use Rapido and build your network, maybe it's a time to check in and see that that is really representative of all the things that you want to be lending. You can do this under configuration, resource sharing, configuration, and then members, and edit physical items lending policies. There you have the option to edit an existing set of participating items and then or create a new one and attach it to a pod. So if you were to go about creating a new set of participating items, you'll name that set. You can use the parameters of material type, item policy, and location in combination to define what you would want to be lending. You have various operators available to you in making those distinctions. So it's great to review your participating items and make sure it's inclusive of all the things you would possibly want to be lending, but you also want to make sure that the participating items are actually attached to the pod. So that screenshot on the left there, where the participating items column has a dash next to the name of the pod, that means that the library has not attached a defined set of participating items to the pod. So you can go in to on the actions next to that pod, that row, and then from that drop down, select the set of participating items that you want to make available to that pod. Okay, another question I received was, how do I have my library's lost fees that we have configured apply to requests? So you'll do this under configuration, resource sharing, general other settings. There's a parameter there. It's in bold. It's set by default to false, but you can set that parameter to true. And then when an item is either manually marked as lost or when the number of lost profile days have passed based on your settings in your terms of use, then the lost item fine and lost item replacement fees will be added automatically. So this came out in the June release, I believe. So you'll find it in documentation and release notes as well if you want to reference it further. Another item that I think, well, I know I've been getting questions about, and I think it's a good one for folks to know about this time of year as various places move toward into holidays. Libraries may be thinking about turning off lending for their physical and digital requests to not be receiving requests when they are out of office or not staffed. At this time, lending hours must be disabled for both Rapido and RapidILL. In future developments, you'll see that simplified. But for today, to turn off lending for your RapidILL requests, you're going to log into the RapidILL website, go into settings and look for lending off hours. From there, you'll select add a new time where you can then determine the date range and time interval or lending is unavailable. Just note that if you edit a created time, you would be better off just deleting that time and create a new entry, as that will work better for you in getting your lending off hours to be what you want them to be. And then disabling lending hours in Rapido. This is done under configurations, and it affects physical requests and digital requests that do not come from Rapid ILL. Performing this configuration requires the general system administrator role, and you get there under configuration, general libraries, add a library or edit library information. From your resource sharing library summary tab, select temporarily inactive for lending, and you can put in a date range there. And when you come back to Office, you can deselect temporarily inactive for lending to continue your requests. So 2 places for now for you to consider if you want to go temporarily inactive, and have your lending off during holidays or not unstaffed times. Okay, and then one item that we wanted to acknowledge as well is there was a NERS submission that has an existing solution. Um, the NERS enhancement request was seeking us to add developments to offer the option to reactivate a Rapido request when it had accidentally been double scanned and thus updated to be kind of a completed request. And there's already that capacity within the system. So just for you to know, the functionality of reactivate at the lender exists in Rapido. In order to use it, the workflow profile needs to support reactivate, and this is already a part of the default workflow profile for your Rapido partners. So it would only be something to check if you have perhaps ISO partners set up in your Rapido environment. Additionally, the reactivate resource sharing request option is checked in the roles privileges configuration for your fulfillment services fulfillment service manager role or the fulfillment service operator role. So that's about the reactivate functionality. And then there's also a safe hold kind of an option for you to look into for avoiding those accidental double scans. So libraries would scan an item to update it as shipped and then scan it again, and can close out the request. But instead, you can have a pop-up come up to ask your staff person when a double scan is performed to confirm whether or not they want to go ahead. So on the scan in messages configuration page, you'll look at the complete lending request message, and it's defaulted to none, but you can set that up to be a pop-up message. And then once it's set, if you scan in an item and it's at the status of shipped physically, but it hasn't been received yet by the borrowing partner, then the message pop-up will come up and will require staff to confirm or cancel that action so that they don't continue to update the request further to accidentally complete the request. If you have this pop-up configured and the borrowing library has already received the request, then the pop-up message will not appear. Thus, you're not creating redundancy or unnecessary pop-up clicks in a scenario where really is not necessary for you. It's only relevant when the double scanning happens, and that double scanning problem only happens if you are updating requests from the scan-in items view, and thus the pop-up will only happen there. If you are updating items to shipped from the shipping items page, you're not going to get that potential second update of the request status there, and there's no need for the pop-up there. On the borrower side, even if a lender performs the double scan, so say you're a borrower and you're a lender, you get a request or filled via a lender that has not enabled the pop-up message to help remind them, and they are doing their workflows from the scan-in page. If they do scan it in a second time on accident to complete the request and you haven't received the resource, instead of the request completing on your end as a borrower, Rapido will move the request on to the next available partner. So quite a lot here to speak to, but both the reactivate and support for avoiding that double scanning scenario are existing functionalities in Rapido already. So that's what I have for you today. I'm going to stop sharing and see if there are any questions from any of you today. Okay, while I wait for questions, I'm going to go grab a couple of links that I think may be of interest to folks. I'll come back to look in the chat for questions as I come back from that. Okay, so I think the first link I mentioned, oh no, here's the second link, but since I have it, here is the webinar registration link. I think that time slot is the one that will be most relevant to anybody who is in our session today. Here is the registration link for the second time slot though. Oh yes, and then the other link I referenced is sharing the Rapido Pods form with you so that you can use that form to add your library to any other pods that are relevant. And then let me grab you the Rapido roadmap link too for the 2024 roadmap. Okay, I think that covers all of the links I kind of referenced today. Please let me know if there are any questions. I'm not yet seeing any in our chat. Okay. All right. I'll give you all another moment in case anybody's typing now, but I'm not seeing any questions, so I apologize if I have missed something that you've tried to ask. I guess I've given you all the links from today that I referenced. I guess I'll throw my email in there as the last thing. I'll stick into the chat so that if there are any questions that I didn't address that I accidentally missed, or if you come up with something after we part ways today, just reach out and we'll discuss your questions at that time. Okay. All right. I don't see any questions, so I'm going to close out our webinar session for today. Thank you all. Take care.